Episode number 391.
People working in the system need to be aware of that and need to understand that children, aren't as fully formed. They aren't adults. And one of the things that happens sometimes when we're in the juvenile justice system is that we tend to project adulthood onto children.
Welcome to the Be Real Show with Travis Too Tall and Huff, where we talk about life, dreams, social media, and business.
Well, hello and welcome to the Be Real Show with Travis Too Tall and Huff. Folks, you know your boy is always fired up, ready to bring you some fuego in your days, nights, weekends, or whenever you are listening to the show today. But after this show, I think you're going to, have a heavy heart. You're going to want to maybe make a change and most importantly, pick up a book and read a book about the juvenile system in America, as well as other countries. You can just imagine it across the board, and basically how the American justice system is failing us, especially our Black children in many cases through the system. And a female that's written an incredible book about that, Miss Daphne Robinson. Daphne, are you ready to be real?
Yes, I'm ready to be real.
Absolutely. Before we get into the book, before we get into your life and talking about it, did you ever think you'd be writing a book at this point?
I thought I would at some point, but maybe not this early. But yeah, I thought I'd write a book. I didn't know quite what I'd write about, but it happened. So,
and in the journey of kind of it takes a lot of time, folks, to write a book. Just like recording a podcast, Daphne. Not only do you take the time to record with the guests, prepare, plan, publish, as well as obviously a body of work. It's like a book is a body of work. It takes a long time. Tell me first, because you have a lot of industry experience in this and insider experience in this. Tell me what gave you the motivation for the book, though, specifically. What was it? A story specifically? What started the process and the journey of kind of uncovering, the injustice, as well as how we can maybe help them as well along the journey, maybe?
Yeah. Well, let me say I appreciate you for having me on today. I'm excited, to tell you the story, but I was a prosecutor for 25 years in the state of Louisiana. I prosecuted criminal cases as well as juvenile cases. Juvenile cases was what I prosecuted primarily in
Gotcha.
3 different jurisdictions in Louisiana: New Orleans, Alexandria, which is in Rapides Parish. We have parishes and not counties. And then the last time was in Caddo Parish, and the largest city in Caddo is Shreveport, which is about 3 hours east of Dallas. And so, so I've seen a lot of things. Some people were always angry with me because I was the prosecutor, but
Right.
My perspective in doing the work was that I never liked prosecuting adult criminal cases because to me there was no value in just punishing people for the sake of punishing them.
Mm-hmm.
But in the juvenile system, the goal is rehabilitation.
Right.
So if I could do something that was going to help a kid get on the right track, then that's what I tried to do.
Right. And in that process, you uncovered that there's many inefficiencies, probably.
Oh my God, is there? Yeah, there are many inefficiencies. I mean,
starting with who represents you,
about,
right? Starting with who represents you as your attorney.
Well, I can't really be critical of the lawyers that I saw
Gotcha.
in court.
Right.
I mean, even public defenders, they're overloaded people who have way too many cases.
Right.
I've seen a lot of really good lawyers who were just drowning in cases.
Right.
And I don't think none of us can do the work that we need to do in the system because it's just too much crap,
Right.
Too much crap. And when you're trying to go through the stack of files on your desk, whether you're the prosecutor or the public defender, it's just impossible trying to provide a level of fairness and justice to everybody that comes before you.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine. yeah, I mean, it's just stuff's going to fall through the cracks, and there's not an equal playing field. Every case is different, and it's also different, and the penalty could be different. You know, someone steals bananas and they get charged for 10 years, and one person steals bananas and they get a slap on the wrist, and they're out the next day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing that, frustrates you. The book is called Delinquent: How the American Juvenile Justice System is Failing Black Children. And I focused on Black children, not that it isn't failing all children, but I focused on Black children because, Black children are overrepresented in the system. Black children are 5 times more likely to be arrested, more likely to be detained, more likely to be jailed in facilities, more likely to be transferred to adult court than all of the other demographics in the juvenile justice system. So the question became why. A lot of it is, just system stuff that is hard to fix. I mean, sometimes I compare the justice system to, a plane that's on autopilot. It's just, you just put it on autopilot and it's just going. But, the problem is that, nobody's bothering to slow down long enough to say, okay, this might be a different circumstance,
right? Or
this kid has trauma, or this kid's mother is not in the home. She's been incarcerated, or she's being abused. This kid's father, so the system has to slow down in order to give kids what they need.
Yeah, that's the problem right now, like you said. And the only way to do that is you have either more people, or, because if you have a limited resources, like you said, if you're like a district attorney or something like that, or if you're a public a representation of your clients, and you're just overwhelmed with 500 cases, you really can't spend any amount of time really focused on any one of them, right? You're just trying to do the best you can. And just like any of us, if we were overwhelmed with 500 things you had to do today on your to-do list, how many are you going to get done today? Correct. I mean, are you really going to be able to get all 500 done? I mean, let's just be real. So if you had 5 things, I'm looking at 4 things. I'm looking at 4 things right now, or 3 things, that defines down the rest of the day today for me, folks, to the heavy things I got to get done before the day's done, and if I had 3 cases, if I had, these are 3 things that could be the same amount of time as a case, maybe studying and preparing or whatever. And so the problem is maybe we just don't have enough infrastructure or resources for the system of processing cases.
Right. I mean, I think that's one of the problems. The approach that I try and take in the book is a public health approach. I also have a public health background.
Gotcha. And
one of the things that we rely on, I suppose everybody knows something about public health now after what we've experienced for the last couple of years. But one of the things that public health relies on is data. So if we know how many kids are coming into the system, we know what they're coming into the system for, what they're charged with, then we could start focusing on, okay, who are these minor offenders, these kids who are having fights at schools? Let's move them somewhere else. Let's put them in diversion programs.
Right.
Let's bring them outside of the juvenile justice system. And then, based on the numbers, let's focus on the kids with the most serious problems, kids who committed the most serious crimes.
Right. So, like some of these crimes lately are scary because people are just walking into a supermarket with a automatic weapon or something. That's to me the truth. Right. The scariest crimes. I mean, for the public safety, that's the really scary. I mean, horrifically scary crimes. And time again, just from knowing people in the public healthcare system and having a lot of friends in the psychology world as well, is a lot of these kids are from their generational trauma or generational abuse, generational, addiction and things like that. And sometimes it's almost impossible to get out of that. I mean, it can only be impossible. I remember one of my friends, Pierre, working at a car wash. On my first job, I had a paper route. I had other jobs, but then one of my very first real jobs was working at a car wash. And at a car wash, you work with all sorts of people. Mm-hmm. Some people are just getting out of jail and that's their first job to reset their kind of next step. And one of my buddies, Pierre, he had just gotten out and he had, he was doing distribution and things like that. But that's what his whole family, everybody in his family was in. So it was like, well, you're going to tell this kid that that's not what he's supposed to do. That's what his mom told him he got to do, and he was a good kid. I mean, but he was finding the best for himself too, along the journey. And, obviously we were in a car wash. We're struggling together, vacuuming cars together. And, we're in the grind together, sitting there and talking too. But it's just those stories you hear too, that with part of it is that, if you only know that, how can you change that? It's just like anybody.
Yeah, I mean, right. One of the other things that I focus on in the book is that so many of the kids that I saw in the juvenile justice system, Black and white, had experienced something we call ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. They, in their studies, they show that there are 9 to 10 things that affect, if they affect you at a young age, you will carry that effect into your adulthood, whether it manifests itself in, physical health problems or mental health problems. And some of those include, a parent being incarcerated, or a parent, witnessing your mother physically abused,
right,
or having a parent that has a substance abuse problem. Right. So these are issues that we know cause trauma to children when they come into the system. And so one of the things that I suggest is that we have trauma-focused training that everyone who's involved in the justice system, it should be the adult justice system too, but that's a whole other day.
Right.
But the juvenile justice system, that people are trained to deal with trauma. They're trained to recognize when young people have issues related to trauma, and that we create a plan, to deal with that. If a kid's put on probation, let's add in some psychologist, some person who understands trauma and how we deal with it to their probation plan.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I suggest.
That's vital too, because the hard part too is that if it's happening, obviously, as many do know, is that with the kids, especially even the males, that their frontal cortex and everything's still forming in those ages too. Not even to the early 20s is it fully formed to where they can really do a lot of these, understanding multitasking or some of these things in life. I remember studying that when I was working with Yahoo on a campaign, and just understanding, what's happening between your, 16 and 20 years old, and your brain's actually forming to understand more things. And, I also remember at that age, you feel invincible too. You also feel like you're a superhero, and you feel invincible, and you feel like you could do anything. You could be, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you want to call it, in that life. I mean, you could just feel like you could just do anything. And the kids are more likely to take risks and to do, things that we would, once we, had some sense, once we got to our 30s and 40s, and myself now in my 50s, things that we would never dream of doing. But when you're 16, you're like, hey, I can jump that tall building. Oh, absolutely. Or, hey, I can, take this car and take the police on a high-speed chase, and nothing's going to happen to me. Right. And so the system, people working in the system need to be aware of that, and need to understand that that children, aren't as fully formed. They aren't adults. And one of the things that happens sometimes when we're in the juvenile justice system is that we tend to project adulthood onto children. And we say, what's wrong with you? Yeah. And when I suppose gained some additional knowledge, I started asking, instead of asking what's wrong with you, I started asking what happened to you. Right. What happened to you to bring you into the system? So. But I think that's a really good point, Daphne, and just focusing on helping them with the trauma, finding ways to get through it. And at the end of the day, knowing that we're focused on kids still, and so whatever we got to do, to try to keep them accountable, show them other paths, give them other examples too. I mean, at the end of the day, that's some of the hardest things, is that, if that's your example, then, if you don't give them, show them some other examples of other people. And I remember Garen Jones, who came on our podcast, is a great gentleman, talking about his transformation from being in jail and reading and all sorts of stuff. He got put in jail on just a whim. He just like, hey, take this car here to there. And he didn't realize it was full of, illegal stuff. And he just thought it was a good opportunity and got caught up into something, and change his life by reading and by getting into books too, and just really reading. And I think that would be important for these kids too, is to understand the power of all these past centuries of word, whether that's scripture, whether that's, you know what I mean? There's so many different words. It's the Bible, whether that's, many other things as well. Obviously beyond the Bible, we talk about the Bible kind of as some of the first, first book in the world. But think about how many books there are, Daphne, let alone your book, but think about how many other incredible books to surround yourself with and to understand. And I think if we could fill the youth, penitentiaries or prisons and things like that with more books and things for them to learn too, would be just great. So anyone's a book manufacturer, you guys need to be sending books.
If we feel
Mr. Amazon, Mr. Billionaire, Mr. Trillionaire.
If we filled, those facilities also too with people who are, culturally competent, that can deal with young people, because sometimes you meet people in the system who really shouldn't be working with young people. They don't have the disposition for it, or sometimes we bring. Travis, sometimes we bring into situations our own biases.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why one of the other things that I advocate in the book is that we have implicit bias training that, judges and lawyers and folks who work in the system should understand that sometimes, I'm projecting my own bias, my own experience on a kid. I mean, we might ask ourselves, well, why are you walking to school, or why are you, doing this kind of thing? Because, that's the environment that I'm in. Those are things that I have to deal with. But if you don't understand that, you don't come from that community, you don't come from that environment, you may not understand why a kid makes certain choices that they make. And so if we try to train the people, I suppose my book focuses more on the adults in the system.
Right.
If the adult folks in the system did what they should do, then maybe we wouldn't have some of the problems that we have with young people.
Because they're continually going back in, getting out and going back in, and getting back and going out back in, and that could be a tough part too.
Right.
They have no way of figuring out what's next.
Yeah, that's one of the things that kind of drove me to look at a different way, moving towards the idea of asking, what happened to you rather than what's wrong with you.
Right.
Was when I saw so many kids coming back in the system and then I started thinking, well, something's got to be wrong with this kid. We told you last time you shouldn't be doing this, and you went and did it again. So then we see that there are mental health problems that are unaddressed, or there's substance abuse problems that are not addressed, or just problems within the home that nobody's ever paid attention to. And so if we started focusing on more of that in the system, I think we would stop having the kinds of numbers that we see. And then, the other problem is the school system. Yeah. We have put so many resource officers into schools, and I totally understand why, that the system responded after Columbine and all the other mass
I was the first year after Columbine. But you know what, Daphne? I was the first year. 1999 was my senior year. Yeah, 1999 was my senior year. I remember there was a viral list at my school, and the principal called me in, and a few of us had to not come to school for a week or two. And it was it was just copycat kind of stuff that was happening after that Columbine, and that's when I feel like that's when they started to put resource officers in every school. It was after then it was there was an officers there.
Right, exactly. And we're still doing it. I don't think, any study has shown that necessarily having a resource officer in a school has prevented a shooting.
Right.
Those numbers may be getting better. Right. But what I do know is that having more police officers in schools has increased the number of kids getting arrested in school. And the number of kids getting arrested in schools, more of them happen to be African American, and more of them happen to be kids with disabilities. That's what the statistics show. Wow. And so I kind of make the argument, because I wrote this, in the middle of after I got out of the hospital. I'll tell you that story in a minute. But during the pandemic, after the George Floyd protests, and so I kind of struggle with this issue of, do we defund school resource officers, and some jurisdictions have tried to do that,
Mm.
and then redirecting those funds to mental health providers so that we can have more folks like social workers and psychologists and the like in schools to address the mental health needs of children. Because what we're seeing now is really just the culmination of so many things, with the pandemic added on top of it. That's why we're seeing like ridiculous numbers of suicides, ridiculous numbers of shootings among school-age children.
Oh, it's horrific. Yeah. That's horrific. And then you add fentanyl or some of these other crazy things on top of that, and it's just absolutely horrific.
Oh, yes, definitely. But you asked about, how it takes time to write a book. I was in a really bad car accident.
Wow.
I was airlifted from the scene, broke both ankles and my left leg. And I still have metal in both my legs. And so while I was in the hospital, and a nursing home after that for about 5 months. And that's when I wrote the book. And so it was just having that time to really, and I basically hit a brick wall trying to avoid hitting another car, but I saw it as a metaphor for where I was as a prosecutor in the system. I had hit a brick wall in trying to get the system to change. Right. And so I decided I would just sit down and write about it, and hopefully somebody out there will hear me and start making these changes.
That's all it is too. It's like the little changes you can make, folks, in your lives. And we'll get into maybe how we can also change outside of picking up the book, Delinquent, thebook.com, I believe is the website here. Delinquentthebook.com. We'll put that in the show notes too. I think I would also love to see people that have reformed themselves out of like a prison environment. Like they've gone to prison, they got busted for dealing or whatever it was. And now they're, out and they're making money, and we pay them instead of the resource officers to work in the schools and kind of, because I feel like they respect more of the OGs, like, let's just be real. The gangs respect the OGs. If people know, like when I come in and talk about my business, when I talk to the kids at business class, when I at the high school level, they respect me a little more because I've been running a business for 12 years. They understand, hey, this guy's not just coming by the side of the wayside here. He's been doing this, and there's social proof, and there's other things too. I got a podcast. I got things that are social proof to back me up. But I think it would be a great thing that we could do is hire or, employ people that are, want to make change in their life with the youth. And instead of the resource officer, we hire them, and I think people will respect them more. I think it's easier approachable. I don't think they're going to bust people for random, kind of BS stuff. I think that if there's something that's crazy that's going to go down, they're going to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, I think that they'll have more success and a bigger impact having people that have actually can kind of see them in their own way and say, hey, dude, like take the other turn, brother. Let's go, baby. Let's, there's other ways out of this, and kind of just speak to them in a different way. Unlike if you talk to an officer, we're all freaking freaked out from an officer, dude. I mean, Ms. Daphne, let's just be real, folks. Doesn't matter skin color, race, ethnicity. A cop pulls behind you, we're all just a little bit, holy shit, but we know the statistics like you talked about, and so no matter what, there's just a fear there. And unlike if it's, someone that, has made a big change, or like say it's a music star or someone that's, a football star that could have taken the wrong turn and now they're, speaking on a bigger platform. Yeah, that's great. We have a few of those examples out there, but there's thousands of other people that have made the change that we could probably empower, to come work a couple hours a week in the schools and speak and talk to them and mentor them and coach them. And there's so many coaches out there in the world for your, for coaching, for physical, for the team sports and for things like that. This would be another type of thing where you have a community and coach and, they're helping you stay on the right path, and we're all going to make mistakes at that age. And
I think you have a good point about, the one thing that I saw with young people who were, especially kids that were selling drugs,
right,
and maybe making money, that you had to watch for the police, you had to watch for the folks, in the neighborhood who were going to try and steal your money or your stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
You had to be able to figure out pricing and packaging.
It's a business, baby. It's a business.
I would always say that, this is this is an entrepreneur. And so if
Yep.
you directed some of that negative criminal energy into doing something, taking the same skills and putting them into a legal business,
Yep.
I mean,
That's
that's
what
the
it is.
best business person in the world.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
And,
Realize, like,
you know,
I'm sitting in front of sports cards. Realize there's sports cards you can sell, pieces of paper that people will buy for $1 to $50 to $100 for just the same piece of card, based on the player that's on it, based on the serial number, based on many things. You can go walk into a Target, walk into a Walmart, walk into a Dollar Tree, find things at the Dollar Tree that can be sold on Amazon for $15, and you make 10x on your money. It's not everything, but there's so many things you can do. Or if someone like that knows how to build community is basically what they're doing. Let's just be real. You can transition that to anything. You can transition that to anything. If you can build a clothing brands, you sell that to your friends, and you can build. There's so many things. You're a salesperson, you're a saleswoman, salesman, and you're absolutely right. I think if we could get the entrepreneurship side to those focus, because let's be real, I know a lot of people at that age that make it so much money that it comes fast, and you're not paying taxes, and you're not, you don't see anything else, and so. To be able to help transition them at an early age, at the faster the better. They'll crush it in the real business world, because it's even better, because everything's legit. They get to keep that money in the bank, and you're not having to worry about your you're homie on the block.
We have to make young people realize when they're, because a lot of kids are doing that kind of thing, is that it's short money, short-lived money,
right?
And there's always the risk of going to jail, always the risk of getting shot, and many people can tell you that story, and so that's why we need to help them redirect that energy. Right. And then I'm fascinated with that story too, because what you're talking about is really resilience. What makes one kid come into the system, two kids who've committed the same crime, and one goes on and overcomes it and, does something better with their life. Absolutely. And, we call that resilience. And that usually happens because somewhere along the way, the kid who did pretty well met somebody. Yes. And that somebody, became the influence for them to move forward.
Right. And I don't think it's going to be an authority figure. Right. So that's why we got it wrong. No. So if it's the resource officer, we're going to look at them as authority. Hey, I don't want any issues with this person. Hey, no worries. I don't want any issues with you. Yeah, we're cool, man. Just don't come talk to me. You know what I mean? And so unlike if you knew that was the motivational coach on campus, you'd be like, hey, coach, what's good, man? What's the tip of the day, baby? What's the, give me some juice for the, for the day. And it would be a different vibe. And I think it would go further with the dollars. Just one simple strategy for anyone out there listening. But now we're about to get you into our top 10. Daphne, are you ready?
Okay, sure.
She's like, I'm not sure what this part is, but this is going to be your favorite part of the show. Let's go. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram.
Give your Instagram a shout out so we can follow you.
Daphne _R_ Robinson. Yay.
There we go. We're going to put that in the show notes too, so you guys can follow her. Chicken, steak, or a vegan vegetable or vegetable meal, if you're thinking about a good meal for tonight.
Steak. Medium rare.
That's my girl. Let's go. Mm-hmm. Laptop or a smartphone? Laptop. Spotify or Pandora?
Pandora,
the OG. Movies or video games?
Movies.
Let's go. Take me away. Reading books or listening to books?
Oh, that's hard.
Depends on what we're doing.
I enjoy both, actually. But if I'm driving, then I'm listening to books. But yeah, I really do enjoy listening to books these days.
It's a beautiful thing that you can do. You can listen to books and you can read them. And I think the more that you take in little pieces of knowledge or podcasts or whatever, the better that we can be as in general. I remember hearing those many years ago, like that your cars, you're walking, college, basically. You're walking, basically school, if you think of it that way. Now with all the platforms, it's easy to quickly pick a podcast, pick a show, pick an Audible, and listen to a great enlightenment in your drive. or when you're working out or walking with the kids or whatever. Stocks or real estate if you're thinking about diversifying your portfolio?
I'm going with real estate these
There
days.
we go. There we go. And if you're going to take a vacation today, Miss Daphne, where would you go right now? An ocean or a lake?
Ocean.
Ocean. What ocean are we going to right now? What ocean are we hopping on the plane on and going?
I'm going to Greece. So is that the Adriatic Ocean?
Beautiful. The most beautiful oceans in the world.
Yes.
The most blue, beautiful oceans in the world. Let's go. You deserve it. We all deserve a dang vacation after the last couple of years. When you're waking up and you're getting ready, pumped, energized for your day, why do you love being you?
That's funny. Why do I love being me? I just do. I love being me because I love knowledge, and I love reading and learning stuff from new people, and so it's a good day when I can learn something.
That's a good life. A life is full of learning. Never feeling settled. Never feeling like we're complacent. We're always evolving, adapting, learning, and growing, and never getting too ahead of our skis either. That's what I always like to say. Whenever I get too ahead of my, hey, T-Huff, you need to slow back down here, buddy. Let's start back here. Where we go, baby? Where are we going here? Do you think you'll ever retire from writing now and taking this journey of maybe continue to educate, I think this could be a continued bigger path for you. Stages, talking, speaking, books, beyond books.
Well, that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I mean, I've done a few presentations as a result of the book. My last one was in Iowa, of all places. And so hope the opportunity will be presented that I can be on more stages to talk about what I learned in 25 years in the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. I was just trying to think out loud of the types of platforms and the types of events that would be perfect alignment so that you could have the biggest impact too, and people that are on the boards of things, and people are, that's what I would feel like. The people that are on the boards of the funding of the prison resource, officers or whatever, that's part of it. You have to impact everybody, obviously, but we also need to figure out who's on the boards of these things to make the biggest change, so we can get the votes in the right way and maybe allocate resources a little better for the future. Right.
So we can change policy. Right. Because sometimes many of the recommendations that I make require changing policy. So you're right. We got to get to the people on the boards and the people that are elected.
Yes. And the future people that are elected. Because if you place it in the mind of someone that is maybe even just up and coming, an up and coming politician, an up and coming senator, someone that's on the path, that's ready to go make a change. And they're going to be the people that are going to be doing the work on a daily basis too. So they can take your ball and run with it a little for you too. So I like that. We're going to find other ways we can think about that. I like that. Do you have a routine on how you start your day?
I got to have a cup of coffee.
Yes, me too.
But, so that's my routine. A cup of coffee, some water, a smoothie, and my computer.
Oh, I like that. I'm a man of liquids as well. I love different types of liquids. And that sounds like the perfect routine. Smoothie, coffee, water. Bam. We're ready. Do you have a favorite app or a tool on your phone or that you just like using right now?
Is there? No.
No apps. What about any other favorite podcasts or any other favorite content? Do you have any people you like to listen to?
Yeah, one of my favorite podcasts is Side Hustle Pro.
Oh yeah, nice.
I've forgotten the young. Yeah, she's really good. Amazing. And what else do I like? I mean, I have a podcast myself that has.
Let's give it a plug. Let's give it a plug.
Right. It's called Mississippi Born, Delta Raised. It's about, growing up in the Mississippi Delta, which is where I'm from originally.
That's awesome.
So it's cool. Check it out. So we've had, several discussions about race and those kinds of things, how they impact people living in the Delta. And so, yeah, check it out. We got about 9 or 10 episodes.
Let's go.
That I think your audience might enjoy.
Let's go. Mississippi born Delta. We're going to put that in the show notes too. If you could sit down to a steak dinner with anyone in the world, who do you want to sit down with today?
Oprah.
There we go.
Rock.
The Rock, baby. Oh, that would be a good one. Maybe the future president. We got to get this message to The Rock. We got to get this message to The Rock. He might be the future president. Or Mark.
The Rock. Not The Rock.
I'm so sorry. Barack Obama, even better. He's been the president. We got to get this to his wife, who might be the next president, right?
Right, exactly.
We got to get to
exactly.
Mrs. Michelle Obama. Let's go. Let's go. I love that. She might be. If they want to take that, if they want to take that path again, maybe they enjoy their time out, not having to be in the spotlight as much, and be able to just
I think they're done with that.
Yeah, right. I think so too.
I think they're done with it.
Yeah. I would only imagine it's a lot. It's got to be a lot. It's got to be a lot just on any human to have all those pressures and influence, and especially in this day and era where everyone's got a dang opinion, everyone's got a damn blog, everyone's got a dang podcast, everyone's got something, and some of it just it's really good, and so it would just be incredibly.
It's really not.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, everybody has. It's like there's no really credibility or authority on a lot of this stuff, and so many times you have to know and appreciate that this just is a different time for anyone that's in that big of a public. I say, God bless them, and it's got to be just an incredible challenge, and Michelle and Barack would be a great combination, and Oprah too. The three, let's go. Has there been a book that has changed your life? Has there been a book outside of writing your book, The Delinquent, has changed your life?
I think one of the most recent books that I read that had a great influence on me was Cast by Isabella Wilkerson. It's really a good book about the subjects that I enjoy talking about: race,
right,
politics in this country.
Cast. I haven't heard that one. I'm gonna check it out, see if they have an audiobook. I like to do audiobooks now that I got kids. I listen to audiobook, taking them to the park or things like that. There we go. And
that'll be the next thing we do for Delinquent is create an audiobook. Hopefully next year.
There we go. I love that. And you got to do it too, so we can have your voice and your impact on the audience, if possible. But Miss Daphne, I appreciate your story, your energy, your passion, the fact that you took let's just be a car accident's a horrific situation, and you flipped it on its head, meaning you took the actual metaphor out of the situation, and now this book and message, I think, has the ability to change more people's lives than ever before had you had not done this, right? And so I just hope more and more people go check it out. Can you give our the favorite place for people to plug the book today?
Yes, you can purchase the book at Amazon, or you can purchase it at my website. It's delinquentthebook.com.
So check that out, folks, on Amazon or delinquentthebook.com. And we're going to put that in the show notes so you guys can quickly and easily find it. Like I always say, Daphne, to all my guests, the world is continually full of abundance. And in this case, I just hope that the abundance is the message we talked about, folks, the things that we talked about. And we just kind of scratched the surface, but that's the goal, is to get you into buying the book, looking the book, reading the book. But Miss Daphne, I think this message is going to take you more and more places than you can ever imagine. And hopefully we can get to a situation where you could talk to someone like Oprah or something like that you could really even take the ball and impact it, and even more than you're already doing, obviously. And so thank you for what you are doing.
Thank you.
And I pray and hope every day after this show that we all think about this a little more, and we do the most that we can possibly do in our day to make a little impact like you have in your day. And I just want to thank you, folks, for that. So, folks, you've been hanging out with Miss Daphne Robinson and Travis Too Tall and Huff. We want to thank you again for your time today, and let's keep being real.
What another epic episode. And if you enjoyed the episode today, can you please do me a favor and subscribe to our podcast, The Be Real Show, on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. And also take a little time today, if you don't mind, and give your boy T Huff a review. I would really super appreciate it. And thank you so much for listening today. Do you want to get featured on podcasts, guys? You can be a guest. And that's right. You have a story, and the people, the good folks at I Love Podcasts. That's ILUV podcasts.com. Do that every single day. This is a new company, guys, in the space of podcast agency. And they realize a lot of the people in the space it's just a commodity. And they don't care. And these folks care. And I literally love Kenny and the team at I Love Podcasts, and they are doing it right for their customers. So you guys can be a guest on a show. ilovepodcast.com. That's ILUV podcasts.com. Let's go.